They understood the need for gathering together for strength. As a community of believers, they understood, wait a minute, we need to gather together. This can't be one of those things where we're isolated from one another, that we don't realize that, wow, we need that dependence upon each other. We need the bond that comes from spending time together as a community. But bonding and binding for the purpose of unity and outreach into a world so lost and so without Christ. Community was necessary for their faith in the midst of the pagan world. I could say so much more on this subject, but I know how long my message is, so I can't follow rabbit trails this morning, as tempted as I am to follow rabbit trails. Community was necessary for their faith in the midst of the pagan world. We live in a pagan world. It's long since past a Christian era. The most atheistic nation in the world today is France. The most pagan nation in the world today is France. And France is just a little bit ahead of the rest of Western Europe. And they're just a little bit further ahead of America. Do we understand how desperately we need one another in the Lord? Their love for one another demonstrated Christianity to the world. Community, their love one for another demonstrated Christianity to the world. See it there in John 13. By this, by your love one for another, shall all men know you are my disciples. But it's because as a body of believers, we cease living that independent, I'm just going to do my own thing in this world, I'm just going to live my own life, my own particular way, and it doesn't matter whether or not I work with others. No. Their love one for another demonstrated Christianity to the world. Churches were raised up as communities with their leadership even rising from within the local assemblies. Which, by the way, is one of the reasons why I do appreciate this church. I believe you guys have great leadership. And that's why I've always felt the comfort to just come and go and stand on a platform and leave. Because I believe you guys do. You have good leadership. But the church needs to be responsible for itself. I know you're looking for another pastor to come, but don't look for a pastor to be your strength, to be your life. That all of a sudden now you just stop and, okay, we got somebody here, we don't have to worry about anything. The church needs to run itself. And it needs to continually be looking and being the strength underneath. And yes, we need shepherds and gifted shepherds. But one man, Christianity's never been a one-man leadership show. It was never intended to be that. Thank God for gifted men who can come and minister in pulpits. But Christianity is the body taking leadership and accountability for itself and moving forward in strength. And you'll find the more that as a body you rise with the leadership issues within the community, the greater becomes your ability to minister to the world around. One man goes nuts. One of the things God has taught me over and over and over again, as much as I love to speak, I love to be involved, I love to kind of get down nitty-gritty, rub shoulders, God has taught me I'm not the Savior of the world. Jesus is. And whatever pastor you put on his pulpit, he's not your Savior. Jesus is. And leaders need to rise with that understanding that Christ is your strength. And as leaders together, as a community of believers moving forward in the world, under the direction and encouragement of a shepherd, a man with a shepherd's heart that will lead and guide you accordingly. Outreach. Not only was there strong foundations, relevance to the to the community and community itself, there's also outreach. And when we talk about outreach, the church sounded out the message of Christ to the world around them. It sounded out. You look at these passages, and we're just flipping right through the scriptures. They're right there in your notes. And I trust that you don't bypass looking at some of those scriptures because they're extremely powerful. But the church sounded out the message of Christ to the world around them, even in the midst of all of the darkness that was there. They just naturally shared. They naturally shared what Christ had done. It was a natural thing for them to share the truth of Jesus Christ. Christ was so much a part of their life. They couldn't help but share and to express the relationship they had with their Savior. It was that deep. It was that deep. Missionary endeavor was a natural outflow of an understanding of the gospel. It was a natural outflow. And you find that Paul's journeys, they were supported and encouraged by the established churches. The churches actually were very much strong behind them. They understood the need to go forth with the word, to sound it forth into an empire. Dark by the ages. Outreach. It was a natural outflow because they were so in tune to that person of Jesus Christ. He was so much a part of all that they were. And by the way, right at the beginning you see there it says the title of this message on the front page. It says Part 1. This is a two-part series. Whether I ever come back and do the second part or not, I have no idea in the future. But the first part, all we want to do is give you the 7 basic issues that brought the church to the early empire. But there's a whole counter series to that. And that is, where does that involve you and I? And some of these things are already accomplishing that in your heart. You stop and you have to think and you have to measure yourself. Where am I in relationship to what the early church was like? But we get into it even more deeply in the second part of this whole message. But missionary endeavor was a natural outflow of an understanding of the gospel. They took the gospel with them wherever they went. In fact, it tells us in the book of Acts that it says that they were persecuted. God allowed the persecution in the book of Acts, and it says in Acts 8, they went everywhere preaching the gospel. They went everywhere preaching the gospel. It was just natural. The persecution came. You know, the Lord said that, hey, you shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the uttermost parts of the earth. And you find them pretty much as a church, they're pretty much in Jerusalem in Acts 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. The church was still pretty much central in Jerusalem. But then in Acts 8, it says, great persecution. They went out everywhere preaching the gospel. And they took that gospel with them wherever they went. The very thing that they thought would destroy it, that really spread the message forward to the world. And then prayer. The issue of prayer. We did a whole series back when I was first here in 80 or 81. I always forget the years, but we did a whole series on the praying church. If there is one thing that is forgotten by our modern generation, it is the depth to which prayer is involved in the ministry of Christ. We are so affluent, our material needs so abundant, we do not feel the desperateness that there needs to be to understand what part prayer is to play in our lives. We just don't get it. We don't get it. There was continual prayer by the church. There was continual prayer by the church. Prayer had a high priority in their lives. It had a high priority in their lives. Prayer is mentioned 152 times in the New Testament. 152 times in the New Testament, 30 times alone in the book of Acts. 30 times alone in the book of Acts, 152 times in the New Testament. That ought to tell us something, shouldn't it?